DeCoste. I live in Toronto. I'm a visual artist. I'm originally from Métis, Nova Scotia. I grew up in a really big Catholic family. There are 6 girls and 6 boys.
Wow.
So we were relatively poor, working class. You know, we never went hungry or went cold, and I didn't really know that we were poor until I got older. When you compare yourself to other things going on in your community. So when I was a kid, I always liked drawing, and I didn't really do any painting, but drawing at school, drawing at home. I liked drawing. Later in life, like as a teenager, I thought I was going to be an architect, because I thought that I didn't really see many artists around showing at galleries and stuff in small town Nova Scotia. So I went off to university to study art, thinking that it was a stepping stone to architecture. But after I got into art at university, I realized that I didn't want to do architecture, that I just wanted to do art. So after I dropped out of university, out of art school, after 3 years, for lots of reasons. One of them was that I thought I knew everything already that the teachers were teaching me. Number 2, I was kind of hiding my homosexuality, and I was kind of in love with a classmate and couldn't deal with going back. I forget what the 3rd reason was. So I thought I would just forget about university and just come to Toronto and make art and try to get shows at galleries. I came out of the closet during university, and I was in love with one of my classmates, or had a huge crush on a classmate. So I couldn't really deal with this love that I had, and I maybe didn't want to torture myself by going back for a 4th year to, be studying with this friend of mine. So that was one of the reasons I discontinued. So I thought I'd just run away to big gay Toronto. So in 1987, when I arrived in Toronto, the gallery scene was a little bit small. The first artist that I met in Toronto at an artist run centre at Mercer Union, his name was Andrew Harwood. He was really instrumental in opening my eyes and collaborating in the sense of doing it yourself. So rather than waiting for the gallery system to accept you, we started by having an exhibition in his living room. And Andrew Harwood started a gallery called Jaja, which was kind of seminal in the Queen West scene, along with other galleries. So after we started doing it ourselves, other people started noticing what we were doing. So eventually we did make it into the gallery scene, in a sense. So then eventually the scene kind of exploded a bit more on Queen Street, along with hotels like the Drake and the Gladstone. So once the artists started opening up their own little spaces, everyone else kind of followed. And then the artists kind of got gentrified out of the neighborhood and live in places like Hamilton and the Junction. The artwork that I was doing when I was younger was mostly based on the male human form, kind of inspired by Da Vinci and the Renaissance painters, and inspired by queerness, and inspired by, I guess, visceral aspects of the body. So I was kind of into, besides kind of classical painting of the body, also using liquids from my body in my practice, like blood, semen, piss. My family doctor would take vials of blood out of my arm so that I wouldn't have to cut myself to get blood. Yeah, so that was fun for a while, and then I turned 40 and everything changed. I lost my day job, my father died, my lover kicked me out, so I lost a lover and a home, and my art gallery closed down. So I kind of lost everything, and I kind of lost my mind, I lost my sanity, and I ended up in the Don jail for 3 nights. Don jail is like the worst prison in North America. They closed it down, it was so crappy. So I kind of hit rock bottom, and I was diagnosed bipolar. So lithium seemed to calm me down. And I think at the time I had burned a lot of bridges in the arts community because I was running around like a madman. And I met this fellow named Jamie Whitney, my current partner. He helped me a lot to get out of that ditch. And when I was home visiting my mother in Nova Scotia, she showed me our family tree. And it was the first time that I knew that we had Indigenous relatives in our heritage. I went back to university to do my master's at OCAD in Toronto, and my thesis was partially exploring my Métis identity. So if my background is Métis, if we were Métis, why was that not promoted to me when I was a kid, or why did my family talk about that? So I think that's part of the larger issues involved with colonization. So I guess in a sense I'm trying to decolonize myself and to de-assimilate myself. After my father died, and after I learned that I'm Métis, I decided that I wanted to put more story into my artwork. In my art practice and in my storytelling, I'm interested in first contacts. I'm interested in first contacts because that kind of explains the genesis of my Métis blood. It's the Europeans meeting the Indigenous people. It's like that one up there. This is kind of an imaginary, fantastical history of Montreal. So the buildings there are from Montreal. The funny tent is from Expo 67. That circular dome thing there, geodesic dome, is Buckminster Fuller's dome that burned down in 1972. So it's a little bit of a psychedelic representation of kind of the passage of time in Montreal. This is a wolverine skin. I painted on the leather side. So it's a self-portrait of my life and my influences, starting in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, where I was born. You see a little church there, that was the church that I was baptized in. Leading up to my life in Ontario as an adult. So in the Nova Scotia side, I also wrote down the names of galleries that I've been to around the world, galleries and museums. Those have influenced me a lot. So those are kind of pretending to be little villages along the shores of Nova Scotia. And then along the shores of northeastern United States, I wrote a lot of authors and books that I've read that have influenced me over the years, like Castaneda, Shakespeare, Steinbeck. The crow is one of the symbols that I've adopted for my Métis identity, and the crow is also kind of a bilingual trickster who can lead you to the other world. So then stitched in red thread, running from the Fairy Hole in Cape Breton. The Fairy Hole is kind of a mystical, magical place that very few people know about. It's also the route that Champlain traveled back in the day. And this map is kind of borrowing images and ideas from his map, but making it my own. Kind of a self-portrait mapping of my life.
Okay. Anything else that you want the world to know through your queer profile on YouTube?
A queer profile. Queer. Yeah, I want to talk about my sister Krista, who's a witch.
Your what?
Sister Krista, who's a witch.
Okay.
So she has been a big influence on me in a sense because she's been exploring her own Métis path through ritual and kind of her own kind of world. I kind of am exploring it through art. She's doing it through drumming and other things. I don't know her full practice. But she took me on a journey to find a spirit animal. So the works that I did last year were inspired by my sister. And I have friends who are witches in the art scene. So this kind of queer world, gay world, bear world, has all these other kind of crossover people, including my collaborations with Ken Moffat, who was a mentor, who's helped me a lot out with like academic stuff and thinking through kind of academic writing type challenges that I used to have that I'm better at now. But he and I have collaborated on some things like the Stag Club, which was a 2-person show exploring masculinity, hunting, and deer shit. So whether it's the kind of queer, fast-worm, witchy artwork, or kind of queer, witchy Andrew Harwood work, or my kind of queer, witchy, inspired by my sister, Krista the Witch work. There's a lot of kind of, maybe kind of alternative spiritualities going on in the art world around me and in the queer world around me. So all of these various little threads of queerness, witchiness, artsiness that I've been involved with in the past with different people, they're still kind of threads that are going to continue into the future.